Hello and welcome back to No Bullshit. Today we return to talking about those terrible events still going on in Minneapolis, Minnesota, here in America. Recently there was a big issue and terrible story that came out of Minneapolis, and it caused the whole town to riot and panic. Now, as I said before, a lot of this has to do with the race baiting and the mainstream media and the celebrities chiming in, making this story far bigger and more dramatic than it really needs to be. Sure, someone died and it was a horrible case and people should be punished for it, but no one's really denying that. No one's trying to cover this up. No one's saying anyone is defending the wrongdoers. No one's saying what happened was good. The president even chimed in and said, hey, we need to try and arrest and take care of these bad people that made this bad event happen. But despite all that, people are still going crazy in Minneapolis. They're looting stores, tearing down places, burning buildings, stealing stuff. It totally fell apart there, and it all started with what was supposed to be a sort of peaceful demonstration. Now, though, everything is falling apart. The buildings are going down. People are breaking windows, stealing stuff. It's really crazy in Minneapolis, and the worst part is, and what we're going to talk about today, is the liberals defending these actions. They're trying to act like these looters and these criminals and these people stealing stuff are heroes or something. They're trying to pretend they're still demonstrators or protesters or something, but they're clearly not. They've crossed a line. They're taking advantage of this situation, a situation that's made worse by liberals left and right. Not only is the mainstream media race baiting and stoking the flames, but also a lot of the police seem to just have stood down in Minneapolis. That town is run by a terrible liberal mayor who can't lead the city, who's letting it go up in flames, not sending police in, and basically causing all this chaos. And the worst part is the comparison that's being made to other important American events, specifically the Boston Tea Party. Today we're going to talk more about the Boston Tea Party comparison, because a lot of people are saying, hey, that was okay. That's what started American Revolution. Why isn't this rioting in Minneapolis okay? Well, they really don't compare at all. We're going to talk about that today and more. I'm going to go over the Boston Tea Party specifically and why that comparison is just simply terrible. But before we get to that, let's take a quick moment to check out our sponsors. Guys, today I'm really excited to offer you these amazing Freedom masks. Everyone has to wear masks in a lot of places now, especially in the states that have been hit harder by this crisis. And you don't want to keep wearing the same mask over and over again. That's what happens whenever you have to wear them all the time, and you start to smell a stink in them because they start to catch your breath and catch bacteria that needs to be cycled. So it's more important now than ever to get multiple masks with replaceable, cleanable filters like this Freedom mask that we're offering you today. And you could save by using the special link below this video. Use that exclusive link to get a special offer only for the NoBS crowd like you guys. Thanks for your time today. Order a Freedom mask now, and with that said, let's get back to the show. Those Freedom masks look awesome, and if you guys buy today, you can get it up to 60% off, so don't forget about that special promo price. Now, back to today's show. Today we're talking about the Boston Tea Party, and a lot of these leftists trying to defend these criminals in Minneapolis, these people destroying their own city. They want to compare it to the Boston Tea Party, and that actually makes sense because, hey, they want it to look good. They want it to look better, so they're comparing it to one of the best protests and demonstrations in American history. Now, as I said, the comparison doesn't hold up under any scrutiny whatsoever. It doesn't really work at all, but you can understand why they would use it. The Boston Tea Party was conducted by the Sons of Liberty here in America in the 1700s when we were still under the rule of Britain. Britain was taxing us without letting us have representation in their government. So a number of Americans organized this group called the Sons of Liberty, which were working towards getting us independence. Now, right out the gate, you can already see a lot of differences. You could see a big oppressive government not giving the people a voice, and then also an organized group that planned a very small, very precise Boston Tea Party event where they threw some tea off into the water. They didn't steal anything. They didn't break anything. They actually even replaced the lock that they broke to get onto the boat. So there's a lot of facts like that that just make this comparison totally ridiculous. And I want to get into it more right here in a second. I have this tweet that kind of spells out things pretty funny way. This is from Eric. It says, looting private businesses with no connection to police brutality is a valid tactic. Just look at the Boston Tea Party. So already you could tell this is sarcasm. Someone questioned that right here, right away. And yeah, it just shows from that simple sentence how it doesn't compare. So in Minneapolis, these people are going after private businesses, sometimes corporations like Target and stuff like that too, but they have nothing to do with this police story. Where this all started was a policeman having a failed arrest attempt, going too far with someone and taking them down. That's terrible. No one's arguing for that, but to go after these random businesses in light of that really makes no sense. Again, the Boston Tea Party went after the British Tea Company. They went straight after the British and dumped out their tea without touching anything else. They made a big point of it, and that actually gets explained further when you look into this picture. If you look right here, the picture actually has a second part. If you can see in this image, it says, was a very costly blow to the British. Besides the destruction of the tea, historical accounts record no damage was done to any of the 3 ships, the crew and any other items on board the ships except for one broken padlock. The padlock was the personal property of one of the ship's captains and was promptly replaced the next day by the Patriots. These are the Sons of Liberty, the American revolutionaries way back in the day. Great care was taken by the Sons of Liberty to avoid destruction of personal property, save for the cargo of British East India Company tea. So the only thing they targeted was the tea. They dumped the tea overboard as a direct sign, we are not going to pay these taxes. The tea had a tax on it. There's a whole long backstory to that too, and we could get more into it, but these are the specifics that matter, especially in relation to trying to compare this to Minneapolis, which doesn't hold up at all. One participant tried to steal some tea, but was reprimanded and stopped. The Sons of Liberty were very careful about how the action was carried out and made sure nothing besides the tea was damaged. Okay, so right there you can already see, yeah, this is a totally different story. This is a great comparison. Boston Tea Party versus Minneapolis doesn't hold up at all. Minneapolis has no organization, no direction, no pointed kind of message. There's no reason to take down private businesses after a bad arrest went down with one random police officer. I mean, even so, I mean, I think a better comparison was if you kind of went after that police organization, like try to protest them specifically. I'm not saying we should do anything bad, anything too far, because another thing to note here is there shouldn't be any violence or destruction of property. It should be very pointed, a very specific action. I don't know what we could, I don't even want to try and suggest stuff for these Minneapolis people to do because they don't really care. They're not really these heroes like the Boston Tea Party people were. They're just out there taking advantage of the chaos, going for stores, stealing TVs, stealing stuff from the dollar store, burning things down, just causing destruction and chaos. And it really is unnecessary. It's really saddening and really kind of it's surreal. Right now we're in a weird place. 2020 has gone crazy. Again, this does hark back to 2016. This similar thing happened in 2016, and this all kind of runs back to the cycle of the world, the cycle of things. The presidential election cycle is also part of that. We had an election back then. We had a culture war in 2016. There were also riots and stuff at some point leading up to the election. And now we're in a similar situation. So even though it doesn't seem directly involved, like there isn't a direct saying of, oh, liberals versus conservatives, this is an anti-Trump thing. It's definitely part of it. And when you get into the weeds and talk about the story more and see people commenting and trying to say, blame Trump for some part of this, trying to say, oh, these people are heroes on the left side, you could see how they're trying to play the story. And that brings us to the next point here. This is another tweet, and this is another bad example of someone trying to compare it to the Boston Tea Party. So this guy says, this is David, it says, young people and teenagers rioting, elites more concerned with property damage than oppression, militaristic tyranny. As a Bostonian in 2020, the only difference I see between the Boston Tea Party and the Minneapolis riots are melanin and hindsight. So this is clear race baiting. They're trying to make it a white versus black thing. It really has very little, if anything, to do with that. What's the truth is yeah, there was no plan for the Minneapolis thing. There was no actual point to it. I mean, yeah, the Boston Tea Party, they threw out that tea. They threw out some tea, and you could consider that a small kind of destruction of property. I can give credit. You know, you could see where there's a similarity, but it doesn't stand up at all because, like we said, these guys in the Boston Tea Party were fighting this British sort of dictatorship that ruled over them without giving them representation. kind of defied their actual freedoms, didn't give them a right to vote, just had them subjugated under the king. And in the other sense, I mean, all these Minneapolis people can vote. All these people can do what they want. They can, elect officials that change the rules. They can even, elect a new sheriff that changes the police department. They could petition the police department and go after that specifically. Like I said, I'm not trying to give them advice, but that would be the real logical way to approach this. If they have a problem with the police in their area, address them directly. Don't go to Target and steal a 4K TV. It doesn't make any sense. It would be like, okay, if Boston Tea Party was warped the other way around, if Boston Tea Party was more like Minneapolis, it wouldn't be a group of people formed and having a specific plan. They had a title, the Sons of Liberty. No, it would be everyone in Boston randomly going into the bars there and stealing booze off of the shelves, stealing stuff from people's houses. They burned down a hotel in Boston City, something like that. That would be comparable to what's going on in Minneapolis. Like if they just went random and broke a lot of stuff and just destroyed the area. That's what happened in Minneapolis, and that's why this comparison is getting really old and really tired. And it just shows that so many people, for a number of things, they don't understand the history. They don't understand these comparisons. They're very politically motivated. It's all about, kind of making these rioters out to be heroes, like they're trying to save the world or something. But really, they're not. They're just opportunists in most cases. They're just angry people that want to watch the world burn. I want to think of quotes like from The Dark Knight, and this reminds me of like the Joker just blowing stuff up. Like the Joker is the villain, you know that, right? I mean, the Joker, there is some people in the new Joker movie that kind of support him as this kind of anti-hero, but he's still the villain there too. He's the bad guy. So, looking up to this person that's these people that are trying to burn down this city and ruin Minneapolis and cause millions of dollars in damage, probably irreparable damage. I mean, do you think anyone's going to want to go back to this city right now? Do you think any of these companies are going to rebuild their stores there? I'm sure some will. I'm sure some will come back. Target's definitely going to come back or something like that, the big stores. But a lot of mom and pop shops suffered. I saw a lot of pictures of, private businesses, bars started by a firefighter was one that comes to mind. I think it was called Scores or something. That thing got totally burned down. I'm not sure what city that was in because this has happened across the country in a few places, but it was likely one of these big riots, one of these big things caused by a terrible incident with a police officer and a bad arrest, but no one's arguing for that. That's another point, and that's the thing that doesn't make sense. Like the Boston Tea Party was fighting for American freedom, democracy, representation, the equal rights in a real case where they hadn't had rights. Now, the police brutality thing, I mean, that's not really the same issue. That's just talking about local cops being too aggressive when they arrest people. Definitely a bad case with that one guy. But I don't know if that even extrapolates to all of that town's cops, all of the world's cops, like, because there was other cops getting attacked in Los Angeles and places too, and you just wonder, I mean, are the cops all bad just because a few were bad in this one place? I mean, does that mean they're all bad? I don't think so. I don't think that adds up. And then here you can see more information about the Boston Tea Party. This happened in 1773. The target was the Tea Act of May, which allowed the British company to sell tea from China to the American colonies without paying taxes apart from those imposed by the Townshend Acts. American patriots strongly opposed the taxes in that act as a violation of their rights. Demonstrators, some disguised as natives, destroyed an entire shipment of tea by the East India Company. And as we just stated before, you can see a very clear-cut reason and motive here. This is an actual protest. This is how it works, and this is how things go down, especially back in history. I mean, another thing to point out here is this is just way too far away to get a proper read on. 1773, going back so many years, whatever, almost 300 years. It's a lot of time, and things were just different back then. And if you consider the comparison still holds up, I think it would be even more proper if you consider this kind of long gap in time. Just things were different. There were people that were actually denied rights in the past. There were dictators, kings, things like bad things like enslavement and bad things going on. You know, that stuff still happens in the present too, but not in America, not in the Western world, and not where these people are trying to protest and change stuff. Like, they act like they're impoverished so bad and so biased against them, but they really have no clue. That's the real point of today. They have no clue. And I think these kinds of people are showing how pampered they are, how spoiled, and then also how desperate for attention. Like, they really, really want to be heroes and made out to be like these Boston Tea Partiers. These people, the Sons of Liberty, are the real heroes here. These are the ones that made this country, that saved us and freed us and gave us this whole nation as our own, not under another place across the ocean. You know, we got our own freedom, and that's something to be respectful of and something that deserves a lot of respect. So we shouldn't be kind of miring and diminishing what they did by comparing them to these rioters who just are trying to steal TVs and vacuum cleaners. That's just ridiculous. The Sons of Liberties were respectful gentlemen, and these rioters are really crazed and kind of off the wall. That about wraps things up. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Make sure you comment your thoughts on everything below. Tell me what you think about the riots. Tell me what you think about the comparison to Boston Tea Party, and more in the comments, and I'll be responding and reading and having a good time with you. Also, hit that like button to help support this video, get it shared, and until next time, you guys have a great day.